I'm Dan, and this is 10,000 Hours of Indie, a podcast exploring new music and delving deeper into what goes on in the background of the independent music industry. I've been a musician and passionate music lover for as long as I can remember, and spent a stupid amount of time listening to mostly new music every week. Get involved and help grow this community. Follow on socials, Instagram, Blue Sky, Facebook, and soon a YouTube channel too, and email me 10,000indie@gmail.com if you have any ideas or want to get involved in the podcast itself. I'd love to hear from you. Black Orchid Empire are a three-piece rock band based in London. The lineup is Paul Visser, guitar and vocals, Dave Ferguson, bass and vocals, and Billy Freedom, the greatest name for a drummer ever. Having released their first album back in 2016, they have gained media praise for consistently pushing the boundaries of their genre, along with a nod to their production and songwriting. The band have toured with some heavy hitters, including Head PE and Skunk Anansie, whose singer Skin said the band had beautiful melodies coupled with tear-your-face-off riffs. Quite a statement from one of the greatest female singers of the last 30 years. Angel Fire, the band's latest single and first released on Year of the Rat Records, was released in February and is about UFOs and extraterrestrial contact stories. Ahead of their upcoming single, Blood God, I'm chatting with Paul from the band. Hi, Paul. Welcome to the 10,000 Hours of Indie podcast. How are you doing?
Hey, Dan. I'm all right. How are you?
Very well. So, as I mentioned, your first single on a new label released in February and another due on the 4th of July. Are fans right to assume there'll be a new album coming this year?
It would be a fairly safe assumption, I'd say. The only thing I can't tell you is exactly when that will be, but we are working on new stuff at the moment. We've got lots of it done. We're in that stage where you're still building and finessing the record, and because we're essentially independent, although obviously the record is going to come out on our beautiful manager James's label, Year of the Rat, the whole point of that is to mean that you don't have outside pressure on how quickly you can make stuff, and we take our time to make sure it's as good as it can possibly be, and we don't really make any apologies for that. We just try and get it to the point where we're really happy with it before we release it. But we decided this time, instead of holding everything till it was all finished and releasing the album in one hit with some singles, we decided to just release singles that we felt were cool, that were ready, and that's why we've allowed everyone a bit of access a bit early, really, to some of the new stuff, which is quite fun. And it meant that, you know, we've been playing shows and people have been singing Angel Fire at us, which has been quite a special treat, really, considering that it's from an album that isn't out yet. So stay with us. We will get it together.
Good. I'm glad there is an album coming, because I'm loving the new stuff, and hopefully the album is in the same vein.
Yeah, I mean, it follows on, I suppose, from Tempest in some ways. The theme of it, rather than being this kind of historical fiction thing that we did with Tempest and the sci-fi that we did with Semaphore, this time it's like mythology. So it could be recent, could be ancient, but it's anything that has kind of acquired a place in the kind of culture of society as a myth, which is quite exciting, really, because it means you can talk about stupid stuff all the time, like vampires. And I say stupid stuff because it is slightly ridiculous, but it's not, because I think if you have a concept, A, it means you can be really collaborative about how you write your songs, and we love to do that. Three of us all pitch in with the melody and the lyrics and everything. And B, I kind of have this theory that everybody has a viewpoint on the world and their existence, and writing in a concept doesn't stop you from presenting that viewpoint. It actually allows you to speak about things and to show your window on the world in a fairly unique way. I mean, you could say the same thing for Pink Floyd or any of the kind of proggy greats. They would immerse themselves in some weird alternative reality, and then that would be their art. But I still get the feeling that they were being artistically expressive in that process. And that's kind of what we do as well. So it's great having a concept. It's fun.
Yeah, no, it's good to have a theme to an album as well, because so few bands do that these days.
Yeah, and it ends up being, you know, if you've got one primary songwriter in a band and it's all up to them to write every single lyric, you get a bottleneck. And you get somebody who feels kind of drained from constantly having to express their innermost emotions, and then needs to take long breaks away from that, because creatives always have fits and starts of creativity. So it's a way of kind of avoiding that. You know, I can't really be the bottleneck for all of these things. It wouldn't be fair to the other guys to sit around waiting for me to do stuff. So this is a definite improvement on that situation.
So I noticed that Singularity has now streamed over 1 million times on Spotify. You must be proud of that.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, we are really proud of that. That whole record is something we're really proud of. We decided to put it out regardless of the fact that we were in lockdown, which is kind of lucky because if we'd have waited till after lockdown, I think it would have taken a very long time. But yeah, really amazing response. And to be honest, we make pretty niche music. We've got to remember this as you know, in kind of heavy genres and in metal bands, especially progressive metal bands, which don't only have melodic vocals in them. It's quite a niche, and it's really gratifying to find people that are into it. So always very grateful for that.
So let's start at the beginning. How did you become Black Orchid Empire?
The three of us were all in the band together with other people. And when that came to an end, we sort of spent a bit of, well, it was actually because the guitarist, his lovely guy, left the band. And we decided, after trying to find someone else to replace him, decided, actually, hold on, we're kind of enjoying being a three-piece here. So that meant that all the music, which we previously had, we just sort of felt, let's move on from that. And so we started writing new stuff. And that was basically what became Black Orchid Empire. So we all knew each other really well already. We're all business partners together. We run our studio business together. I mean, I've been in the band with Billy since I met him in like 2003. So we've been around.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it wasn't new people. And obviously they're my closest friends. And it's been an amazing journey we've been on together. But it was a kind of meant to be, I guess.
Yeah. And how about the band name?
I think Billy suggested it. It's funny because a lot of people ask that and they kind of, there's like this mystique around like, how did you pick your name? And when you're talking about naming your creations, like your actual albums and your songs, is usually a really conscious process. But band names, to be honest with you, are a bit of an idiot. Everything's been taken. Everything's tricky. So when you're trying to think of a name, you end up just chucking ideas around, chucking words around. And I think Billy suggested those three words and it kind of stuck. There isn't a glamorous kind of origin story for that, I'm afraid.
That's okay.
We need to make some up. I keep saying this every time someone asks me that question. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna make up a good one next time.
You're not the first band to suggest that.
Yeah.
So how do you make music? Is it music first or lyrics first, or do you just all sit and jam it out? How do you get creative together?
We've done every version of that process in the past, but currently for this record and the previous two, it's been very collaborative in the studio rather than in the rehearsal room more often than not. And we'll start with riffs or ideas. Everybody writes everybody else's parts, usually with the express kind of wish of fucking them up a little bit and making them harder. But we start with that and then find melodies that fit that and then find lyrics that fit that melody. And again, that's why having like a concept comes in, because it makes that process that little bit easier. It's very tricky to kind of to allow anyone else in on that process unless you're doing it that way around. There are times when I've had maybe just lyrical ideas first and then, but I don't usually, if I had a lyrical idea walking around or something, I probably wouldn't use that as a starting point. It just might be that later I go, oh, that kind of fits this thing I have now. But yeah, lots of gibberish, lots of humming gibberish is how songs come together.
I've never experienced that until the duo I'm in now, and
Right.
both of us are singers, both of us are songwriters.
Right.
And she said, "Oh, I haven't quite finished this song, so I'm just going to hum the bits that are missing." I was like, "Wow, I wish I could do that."
Perfect. I mean, that's how every melody is formed, isn't it? No one just launches out with a perfect. Well, maybe some people do, and I know there are also lots of people that write lyrics almost like poetry and then fit them to music afterwards. And there's nothing wrong with that process either. It's just I find that isn't really the way it happens for me or any of the other guys in the band. So who knows? Yeah, never say never. Maybe we'll do it next time.
I used to do that before I could actually play an instrument confidently enough.
Right.
But then now everything's written on either piano or guitar, so it kind of comes together, I'd say organically, but the stress behind writing songs is never quite organic, is it?
I don't know. I feel like if it's stressful, something's wrong there. Yeah, it's more okay. Fixing certain problems and solving the jigsaw puzzle can be challenging, and that can be a bit stressful, I think. But so all three of us in the band are professional songwriters and producers. We work with other people all the time, so we've got hundreds of songs worth of experience of working on other people's music, as well as our own. I think that helps give that bit of objectivity as well. So I see it as an exciting puzzle. Usually, I know what you mean when you hit a wall with something and you just cannot get a lyric that feels right for that melody. It can feel kind of stressful, but that's usually the time to just have a tea break and do something else.
Yeah. I mentioned in the intro that you're a band that constantly sort of push yourselves and evolve.
Yeah.
How do you go about that? Do you sort of sit down and consciously think, how can we go further than we did last time? Or is it just a natural development of your songwriting and skills together?
I think it's a bit of the latter, definitely, because the things we do now are very much more challenging than the things we did in 2015 or whatever. But I think that's not quite. It is both. It is pushing ourselves deliberately, but it's also just developing, like hearing new music that inspires you, and I think that's quite a natural thing to happen. We do definitely. The more you do, the more albums you've done, the more you have to be conscious of what you've done before and what in terms of what you do next. And nobody wants to just sit there repeating themselves. I mean, when you go and write the kind of, in quotes, perfect song structure, like the very simple song structure kind of can work for every song. But that means you have to start pushing that a little bit and seeing where it can fall apart. So on this record in particular, we're trying to push ourselves into maybe some longer, more progressive stuff, which makes our manager ask for more singles. Because we're very, very comfortable writing a 3-minute banger of a single. That's like, what we do all the time in the kind of pop world. So it's actually weirdly more challenging to write the more non-traditional format songs. But yeah, we do think about that. It's really hard when you create music because you can't be driven purely by how you think other people are going to appreciate it. But you also can never forget that either. It's because it only exists. I mean, it's like food only exists really when someone eats it. There's no point in cooking an amazing meal and sticking it on the shelf. And it's the same thing. People have to experience the music for it to function. So you have to think about your audience, but you can't think about, oh, I'm going to make a song that my audience will like. That's a really tough place to start from. So yeah, it's a hard balance being conscious of that, which, is kind of the same thing as pushing yourself further than you did before. I think it works. There's a lot of bands that will tell you that every single time they do it, they really, really try and push themselves. And I feel like we do that as well. But also you have a certain taste and a certain aesthetic that kind of always works for you. And pushing against that would be quite weird. So it's finding a balance between those two things.
So you're 4/5 albums in. Do you still have the same excitement over a release now as you did back in 2016 when your first album was released?
Yeah, more so because there's like some chance of people hearing it now, which is great. It's hard when you first start just releasing stuff into a vacuum and hoping someone notices, and getting good responses is amazing. Yeah, we do. We are excited about it. We're always excited about it. To be honest with you, the reason we do music is not to be successful, because that's a ridiculous reason to do anything. The reason we do music is because we're going to be doing it every day till we die. There's no choice about that. We're completely addicted to the process. We love it so much that it makes sense to turn it into something we do for a living. That's not the driving force. So if we didn't enjoy it, we just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
It would be that simple. I can't imagine a situation where it's like, oh, we hate this, but we have to churn out a record. And I know people have been in that situation before and it must be awful. But we're all still like giddy kids all the time, to be honest.
It's a good way to be. So tell us a little about the upcoming single.
So it's about vampires. All the stories have got this kind of flavour where they're sort of told from the first person, set inside the mythological framework that we want to explore. And on this one, we decided to be from the perspective of somebody who's like in the thrall of this vampire. Like this I've got this kind of Castlevania imagery. I don't know if you've ever seen the Netflix show of the game, which is really cool. It's kind of glamorous and it's like, it's edgy and dangerous, and it's like people want to be part of that, which is what I was talking about earlier. You start off talking about vampires, but really what you're talking about is obsession and being part of like a cult and being part of a kind of, something bigger than yourself and being obsessed with that idea. And funny enough, it's the same thing with Angel Fire. It's about wanting to be abducted by UFOs because you are obsessed with the idea of essentially transcending your existence. So it's funny, you can have two completely different topics, but end up talking about quite similar themes.
You have, slightly sidestepping, you have a massive list of endorsements on your website. How did all of those come about?
Man, I mean,
I guess, is that something to do with the fact that you've got your own studio? So,
well, yeah, they kind of go hand in hand. I used to actually work in, guitar shops when I was a kid, and I worked in on the kind of retail side of the music industry. So I ended up meeting. I know if the guy we were hanging out with the guys from All Ears of Vow, for example, when they supported us, and two of those guys work for a pedalboard company, and it's like it's all very connected. So you just end up kind of getting to know people. Once you've got a certain amount of kind of material out there and a certain amount of recognition, it's a bit easier to kind of ask for things. But to be clear, if we've got a deal where we endorse a product, we're definitely not getting that product for free. Usually there'll be like, a discount involved, but it's not Metallica. No one's giving you a bunch of Mesa Boogies these days. And unless you're above a certain size, and that's a whole other ballgame. It's almost like as soon as you don't really need stuff, people definitely want to give it to you for free. But
I think that's the same in every industry.
Yeah, I think it is. No, we're very, very grateful for that, for those relationships. And it's because we have a very singular approach to what we do that is kind of based around the production and the equipment needed to do that. And it does require a certain level of quality. So we're quite picky is what I'm trying to say, which means that, we're going to know exactly what we want, and it makes sense to go and get it. I mean, Dave recently had a bass made for him by some friends of ours, who have a company called Full Tone, and it's amazing, but it's very specifically his. No one else is going to be like, that's the bass for me. It's like very much his design, exactly how he wanted it.
Is that the 5-string black brown one that he put?
Yeah, it's pretty mad. It's very, very good. That's the extreme end of that, isn't it? It's when you go, instead of getting something off the shelf, I'm going to sell a kidney and go and make something custom. He didn't really sell a kidney, for those that might think that was true. That's not true. It wouldn't be. His kidneys would be worthless. But actually, I've got solar guitars, and I love them. Even though they're basically just production guitars. They're not expensive instruments, really, compared to some. They're sort of sub £1,000 instruments, but they just seem to be perfect for what I want. So I think there's also a kind of mythology amongst beginner bands that once you get all the right equipment, it will be amazing and you'll sound great. And that's sort of true, because what happens is they end up happening at the same time. But usually, if you give an average guitar to someone who's really talented, they're still going to make it sound pretty good.
I've had that problem with my guitars. I hate it.
It definitely doesn't work the other way around. I always tell people I could crash a Ferrari really easily. It doesn't mean it's not a good car. So I think the gear does not make the musician. That is a definite truth. But good musicians appreciate having good equipment as well. Definitely helps.
Do you think being based in London has helped the band because it's the musical hub of the UK, or has it actually made it more difficult as there's so much more competition?
I think being based in London is essential for our studio business. I think, if anything, it's hindered the band. I think, I don't know, the sort of scene, the local scene of London is not really a thing, because it's such a huge city and there's so much going on, and there's like 1,000 bands playing every night. There's this thing where if you come from a smaller town, like it is possible to be the best band in like Hull. It's definitely a doable thing. You're never going to be the best band playing in London that night because it's so vast.
Yeah.
So I think that is tricky. However, I don't know how much that kind of locality of scene is relevant anymore in the same way. I think it is to an extent, because everybody has to start in their kind of local area and do grassroots shows, but they're probably overplaying those local shows anyway. The good news, though, is that you can reach literally everybody in the entire world who's interested in the little micro genre of music you make online. So in a way, it doesn't really matter where you're from. And that's why you get bands where they all live in different cities. They get together, have a couple of weeks of rehearsals, and then go on tour, and they do all their recording remotely. That's like pretty common. So I don't know. I think locality is less and less important, except if you live somewhere where there aren't any other musicians to collaborate with. And that's obviously really tricky. But yeah, I definitely don't think it's helped. I take London for granted because I lived here for a very long time, and it is an amazing place. It really is. But I don't know if it necessarily has helped the band at all. It may be.
I think the next question may be redundant, but there might be a story behind it. I mean, you've signed for Year of the Rat Records, which you've just told me is your manager's record label. How did that end up coming about?
We've had lots of different labels in the past, and we've had really good relationships with them. There's been nothing less than amicable. With Long Branch, for example, who we signed with in 2018, and we released Eugen and Semaphore with. The only reason that they decided not to take the option on the next record with us, to be fully transparent, was because they got bought out by another label. So there was no like weirdness. It was just they literally, their hands were tired, probably tired as well, but their hands were tired.
And it was carried all the bands.
Yeah, exactly. And then so that was fine. And we moved on to Season of Mist, did an album with them. It's all been fine, but we just really wanted to make sure that for this record, it was very much us and in our control. And we could self-release, but James has a really good label set up, and he's basically an additional member of our band. He's been with us since almost the beginning. So it made a lot of sense. It was not a difficult decision. And yeah, fingers crossed that it works out well.
You've recently announced some festival dates for the summer.
Yeah.
You're a high-energy band live, so I guess you guys really enjoy the festival circuit because you can work a crowd that isn't yours, unlike some of the other bands.
Interesting point, yeah. That's actually been our thing, is always doing as many shows as possible and then just winning over the audience as much as we possibly can, generally just by being prats. But I think it's because it's quite progressive music. It's quite challenging to get into if you don't know it, and sometimes that can leave people kind of nodding but not really being involved. But with our stuff, we've got this melodic edge, which means at the heart of all of it is kind of like a poppy melody that's quite easy to get. So by the second chorus, people are normally like, okay, I can do this. I can sing along with this. This is cool. And that's, that did us a lot of favors, especially doing stuff with Skunk Anansi, for example, where I really felt like their crowds were engaging with us in a really nice way, which doesn't always happen. I mean, it's tough being a support band if you have a great show and then nobody cares. You're getting put on almost at doors and that kind of stuff. It can be really challenging. So we've been lucky with that. But yeah, we love doing festivals. We did Uprising Festival a couple of weeks ago, which was great fun. Really well put together thing. And we're doing Mangata Festival in Nottingham Rescue Rooms on July the 12th.
And you've also got 3 shows at the end of November where you're going to share the stage with Ugly Kid Joe, the Choir Boys, and Danko Jones, amongst others.
Okay, good. So that's Planet Rock stock, isn't it? So and then there are shows either side of that as well, which will be fantastic. I think I think you're really testing my knowledge of our own. I think we're doing 2 shows before Planet Rockstock, so a fun sort of run up to that. That'll be really good. That's always a laugh.
So is the assumption that will kind of be the time the album's coming out if everything goes to plan?
I'm not going to be pinned down.
Worth a try.
It'll be done when it's done, and who knows when that will be.
Have you recorded everything and you're all in post-production, or are you still recording?
No, we kind of do things as we go. So we'll get a bunch of songs ready for drums, and then we'll do drums on all those, and then we'll finish them off. Because usually the process is after the demo is done, drums go on first, and then we'll do like re-record bass, re-record guitars, re-record vocals if it's needed, depending on what was done on the demo. Although quite often songs actually end up being bits of original guitar or bass or vocals or whatever. So yeah, we've recorded a massive chunk of it, but some of it literally doesn't exist yet, so it will.
Okay. So
it's not a traditional process where you kind of record everything in one go and then you have loads of mixing and overdubs and stuff. It's more like one song at a time, but with sort of some chunks going on. So yeah.
I guess because you have a studio, you don't have that pressure of having to book time and know it's ready.
We actually have a massive amount of pressure to book time because we're really busy, which is a good problem to have. Tonight, as I record this interview, is just, in a minute we're going to do rehearsals and then we'll write some stuff and we make sure we have a late night, like at least once a week, and then kind of cram if we need to. But yeah, you're right. It's the advantage. It's kind of a double-edged sword though, because the more that you have access to it, the more you can easily just be like, I'll do that next week because I'm too busy this week. But yeah, no, we've done that. We've done both types of process because we used to hire out other studios, and part of the reason we got into the recording side of things is because we got more and more into the idea of doing it all ourselves, and not being reliant on other spaces being available and other people and large budgets and stuff.
You have a website, blackorchidempire.com. Mm-hmm. Where can people find you on socials?
It's literally Black Orchid Empire pretty much everywhere.
Well, that was easy. Well, the new single Blood God is due for release on the 4th of July through Year of the Rat Records. Thanks, Paul, for coming on the pod. Much appreciated.
Absolute pleasure, mate.
Have a great summer of festivals, and I can't wait to hear some more stuff after Blood God, because I have heard it, obviously, and it's a cracker. So anyone who hasn't heard it yet, if you listen to this, stick it in the, I don't know what they call it in Spotify, the pre...
That would be a pre-save, yeah.
Yeah, the pre-save, and make sure you hear it, because it's a cracking listen.
I'm glad you think that, because if we got all the way to this point in the interview and we're like, yeah, this new single's not the one, I'd be disappointed.
I don't do the interview if I don't like the music, trust me.
That's good to know.
Okay, well, thanks for your time, Paul. Much appreciated.
My pleasure, mate.